Hi, everyone. Welcome to today's spotlight session on civil engineering. Just to let you know, this is the first in our series of virtual information sessions highlighting the various programs offered here at Lassonde School of Engineering. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. We're very excited to share everything you need to know about studying civil engineering here at Lassonde. Now, before we dive in, I'll start by introducing myself. I'm Anna, the Domestic Student Recruitment Officer here at Lassonde, and essentially I'm here to help answer any questions you may have about the admissions journey. So if at any point you have any questions about your application or admissions in general, feel free to drop it in the Q&A, and I'll try my best to get through as many questions as possible. But I am not the star of today's show. I am joined by our knowledgeable civil engineering student ambassador, Ethan, who will share the ins and outs of the program with you all today. So without further ado, I'll hand it over to Ethan.
Thank you, Anna. So my name's Ethan, Ethan De Silva. I'm gonna be 23 years old on Wednesday. I took 5 years to do the program. I started in 2020. I'm also the engineering ambassador. I live locally, so I am a domestic student. I travel to campus. I don't stay on campus, but I have some fair knowledge of what it is to live on campus and residency, and so does Anna. We could help with any questions you guys have about that. And then some little interests about me. I've always had a strong love for cars. My dad's a mechanic, so I was around them since I was born, essentially. And since I've gotten older and had more responsibility, I've enjoyed building things, bigger scale things with my hands. I used to do it as a kid with little things, but now I'm allowed to, or it's safe for me to use all the heavy equipment and do things myself. Um, so going forward into today's presentation. We're going to be covering what a common first year looks like, the key courses that you guys are going to be taking, some basic technical skills that you guys will gain over the course of your degree, some co-op and extracurriculars and research opportunities that you have here at Lassonde, and some extra support and resources that are familiar to me, but also from offered to everyone that needs them. And then we'll go into some recently asked questions or frequently asked questions that I received, but also some Q&A specific that you guys have. We'll try our best to answer them at the end. Okay, so civil engineering. So, so in your first year, it's going to provide a pretty good background to what engineering is. It's undefined, so you'll be able to learn all the necessary skills that can lead you into being doing any of the disciplines not specific to civil. You will have to take your engineering mechanics, which is going to be a lot like it's going to build on your grade 12 physics. It's going to be somewhat of a review, but then there's going to be some new stuff at the end, a lot of dynamics and kinematics, things like that. And then you'll go into springs and different oscillating and different things like that. And then you have your applied calculus, which is going to be like your calculus in high school, which is going to be like your derivatives and your limits and things like that. And then in second semester, you're going to take your physics 2, which is going to be a little bit more building on new things. It's going to take electricity and circuits to a higher scale. You're going to be looking at turbines and magnetism and different optics. Some of this stuff will be new. You won't really be covering this in high school. And then you'll also take your applied calculus 2, which is like your integrals and things like that, which will most likely be new to some of you as well. And also in first semester, you'll have your linear algebra, which is going to build on your advanced functions. You will do different things where instead of in high school, you only have maybe one variable, an x and a y. In linear algebra, you may have a series of variables like a matrix, and you have to solve things like that, which these are all basic math skills and physics skills that you're going to have to use in your later years. Regardless, you're gonna eventually you may have to solve a series of equations for some sort of problem, and a matrix is what's gonna allow you to do that. So, and same thing with using integrals and derivatives, you're gonna have to go back and forth between equations, but also understanding basic physics mechanics to understand the harder problems in the future. So it just gives you a good understanding to how to do everything. So civil engineering. So there's a couple different things. A lot of people, especially me, when I was starting, I thought civil engineering was pretty much just designing a building. I thought it was just pretty much structural. but it goes way beyond that. One of the professors at Lausanne will say that civil engineering is something that you use from the moment you wake up to the moment you go to bed. Um, you're going to be dealing with things with project management. So, yes, you're designing stuff to build, but someone has to manage those projects. And why wouldn't it be the person that designed it and knows everything that how to build it safely? Because a big thing of engineers' jobs is public safety. You know, if anybody knows the history of the Iron Ring, it's all about public safety. That was a tragic event, which is why they specify it so much now when you're graduating that you have to make sure that what you're building is structurally has structural integrity and is going to last because it is dangerous, right? If you build a bridge and something happens, it is very dangerous. Same thing to a building. You want to build things that last. It is very important stuff, but obviously the cool stuff you're going to be able to design, you're going to construct, you get to do site visits, but it's also now a new thing. Or emerging thing is the environmental impact of things, right? The carbon emissions. Some people now they want to build out of wood because it's very low carbon. You can do almost a net carbon zero building out of wood now instead of using concrete, which has really high carbon emissions. And then stuff too specific that here at Lausanne, we have the High Bay Lab, which before the Bergeron was built, this lab was the outstanding building and the Bergeron was built around it. This is where most of the civil engineering structural tests get done, and it's used by a lot of grad students and PhD students where they do their research and they work on new concrete polymer fibers and they test it. There's a hydraulic press inside where you can load test everything. There's concrete mixers where you can design concrete beams and cylinders, which you'll get to do in your second and third year. But it's also you can also do geotechnical testing because of how strong and the actual room was built. And then here at Lausanne, there's also a specific land surveying course that's only offered at least from my knowledge right now, it's only offered in the summer as a 2 week program. It's full time, so it's Monday to Saturday, 8 hours a day. You have a lab every day, but it's completely hands-on. You do a little module before you come to the school in the afternoon to do your lab, and then you're on the campus surveying different elevations all across the campus, drawing it out, pretending as if you're going there to map out a new site that you needed elevations for where you're putting a building on. So it's a pretty hands-on experience those 2 weeks. And then in your third year, the professor likes to take the students to the Ashbridges Bay water treatment plant when you're taking the sanitation engineering class, just to help visualize what a sanitation plant is for water treatment, because that is part of civil, the sewage waters and water runoff and how the water gets cleaned and treated and what goes to the waste and what gets reused, things like that. And then also in second year, there's a course where you're introduced to the various building types of materials that you can use in civil engineering. And the professor, for one of the projects, he'll make you make a bridge out of popsicle sticks, where you have to give reason to why you designed it a certain way and how you designed it. But then also, if you have the best bridge and your bridge holds the strongest, you can go to a competition with a group and verse other schools in a bridge building competition all across Canada, which is another good thing for networking and meeting new people and something to have on your resume as well. So some of the curriculum highlights that I liked the most are the Introduction to Structural Design is a third year course, Civil 3230, specifically if you want to look up the course code later on. Um, but this course was probably one of my favorite run courses by the professor. Every time I see him, I bring it up that it's probably one of the best courses that you can take in undergrad. It is mandatory. You do have to take it. So if you come to Lausanne, it's going to be something you will experience. And it opens you up to all the design codes for structural engineering and things like that using the National Code Book of Canada, using the concrete handbook, using the steel handbook. It's just a very introductory course to understanding the codes and implementing them. And then you have your geotechnical engineering, which is also a second semester, third year course. This course, same thing. It's introduction to building foundations, building retaining walls, building things that have to do with soil, understanding soil properties, soil moisture, how the groundwater table impacts, how the soil is gonna, how the soil can be more compacted because of that, because it's more mushy, right? It's saturated. So understanding things, building with the code books, understanding how big something has to be and why. And then we have hydraulics, which is another third year, first semester course which is going to grow. on your understanding of fluids and pipes, and you'll have to design pipe sizes depending on flow speed and necessary water volume and things like that, but also dealing with turbines and understanding the power generation and things like that. And then we have transportation simulation modeling, which is a fourth year elective that you have a choice to take or not, which actually I do recommend it if you're just curious about how things are run, but it opens your eyes to why you go to a stoplight and why maybe a left turn signal on one side stops before the other side and so and basic things like that and why things aren't always the same and the sensors and how actually things they actually do those things because it's not just they just do it for fun. It's there's an actual reason behind it, but also how Uber you could even learn things how Uber ride shares are conducted and the types of methods that they use for those algorithms because transportation has a lot of algorithms, probably the most out of all of them because it's a lot of psychology on how people operate and pedestrians operate versus cars operate. There's different rules and just being able to understand that. And then there's also water resources, which is another fourth year technical elective that you have the option to take, but it builds on more so sustainability in the water aspect where you'll be able to learn how to model basic water infrastructure like sewage pipes and things like that for neighborhoods, but also understanding why urbanization and why all these floods are happening around us in the city and why they're more common now has there's more buildings going up because there's less greenery in the city to capture all the water, all the runoff and things like that and why like say something you may learn is combined sewer overflow, which is when downtown Toronto has combined sewer systems where sewage water and runoff goes into the same area and the pipes they can't keep up with it anymore because now there's so much urbanization that there's not enough greenery in the area to absorb all the water, and it more so is going into the actual pipes and has to get updated now. So it's finding ways to mitigate that without completely redoing all the systems. And then the technical skills you'll gain is obviously you're going to gain the structural and designing. You're going to understand the code book. Same thing for geotechnical. Same thing for water. Same thing for transportation. Same thing for sustainability. But it's also a lot of strong time management. And you even some of these courses you're gonna have to do projects. You have to do cost assessments. You're gonna have to do little things like that that are theoretical, but they help give you an idea of what things actually look like in the real world. Oh, and going into some of the opportunities and valuable experience and things you can do on the side here at Lasan. You can join your co-op in your after your second year, after you completed your second year, but you can only have a certain amount of third year credits to be qualified to do it through the university. You have to do two work periods, greater than 12 months in total, and but it has to be separated by one academic year. But York does have some good industry partners that you can partner with for your co-op that can really get you started and you can grow a long-lasting career with if your co-op goes well and they want to keep you on, like Metrolinx, big company, Hatch, Elaston, Region Appeal, Caniden, Miller Group, Suncor Energy, some pretty big names that can really put you on one step forward after you graduate and while you're doing your undergrad. But if you don't want to do a co-op and you think maybe you want to do a master's, so you want to go full scale PhD, but you want an idea to what research looks like, you can also do research at Lausanne through your undergrad that also counts as a co-op term where you actually get paid to work under one of the professors and study research regarding structural engineering, geotechnical engineering, sustainability, climate change, whatever that type of project the professor has at the time. You can learn what research really is all about and gain experience in that. Another good work experience, but also learning experience to put on your resume as well. It looks another thing to have, which is very important. And then just for some extra things to stay connected on campus with everybody you're going to school with, because there's going to be a lot of people that you meet, especially in your first year, and then you all branch out. But we have there's various clubs, tons of clubs at Lausanne and York. You can join for clubs that are just specific regular clubs. We have Civil Engineers at Lausanne. There's Women in Science and Engineering, Lausanne Engineering Society. So and those are only three. There's magnitude of clubs that you could join, and then you have your your design specific clubs where students will actually come together and they actually build stuff as their club. When you have the Arbalest Rocketry Club, currently building a rocket right now in the basement of the Bergeron, where they'll go compete with other schools as well. And then we have the Concrete Canoe Club, where it's in the name, they're building a canoe out of concrete, and it's a team of students that are designing and building the shape of it. And then they'll go to events with other schools and they'll compare it as well. Another great network opportunities. And then there's also the Robotics Society, where they're currently building a rover right now, also in the Bergeron, in the basement. And then there's just events that you could join for fun, but some like the hackathon, one of your courses you'll have to join one of these events as part of the course, um, where you can go and there's like a problem that you have to solve in like a team, and you have the weekend to do it. And there's other events that you could join where there's like debates about engineering topics that you can do with other students. And then here at Lassonde, there's also the machine shop that is really home to the mechanical engineers and the electrical engineers. But you can go in there and get certifications and learn how to use the sawmills and the drills and things like that, and have certifications on your resume as well, because there's workshops open to students that you can sign up for whenever you want. And then a lot of these clubs have club social events. I mean, they recently there was a go-karting event. There's movie events. Sometimes there's just regular hangout parties at some of the venues on campus. So there's lots of extra things to do besides just learning about engineering. And some of the support and resources that I've used for the last couple of years was definitely the academic advising. In first year, I had a lot of questions about how to build my schedule, the courses I needed to take, the order I need to take them in, but also just basic GPA requirements. What do I need to get? Do I need to have a certain GPA in every course, or is it overall for all of them? Which is it's overall for all of them. You have to upkeep a C plus, which is not that hard as people think to do. It's pretty manageable. Um, it's not really an issue. But also you have to take electives, and you may not know what electives you could take or what counts. So you can go on the phone, you can call them, you can go over Zoom in the Bergeron, you can do an in-person meeting with them. There's a bunch of different opportunities that you could do to chat with somebody that's knowledgeable about everything regarding the program and the courses and GPA requirements, and they can set you straight on whatever questions you may have or you're unsure about. But there's also the student accessibility services. And when I was in my second year, I was unfortunately involved in a car accident, and I took the second semester off, but I continued the first semester because it happened so far in where I wasn't going to receive a full refund. So I just decided to stay through. And the accessibility services helped me along help with files signed by my doctor and things like that to give me accommodations where I had more time for assignments, for tests, for things like that. I had students in the class doing note sharing because it would be hard for me to write my own notes because of the posture issues and things like that. But they try to help your best if you need those accommodations for those classes. And then there's the Tate McKenzie Center. I'm pretty active. I've been active since I was a kid. Played soccer since I was 5. Go to the gym now. And one of the things that you can do on campus, $20 for the whole year to use the gym, is the Tate McKenzie Center. If you live on campus, a lot of the students use it. You have a break between classes. You already paid for parking for the whole day anyways, or you bus to school and you're only going to go to school in the afternoon. Why not just go to the gym, have some fun? You don't just have to work out. There's tennis courts around campus. There's basketball courts around campus. There's squash courts. There's pools. There's tons of things that you could do, sports-wise activities that you could just have fun. There's intramural sports that you could do as well. You join intramural soccer in the summer or in the winter and with other students as well. So lots of activities outside of just engineering or course-related help. So
Perfect. Thank you so much for sharing your insights, not only on civil engineering, but on student life as well, Ethan. Now, for those of you who have joined us today, I'm sure you may have some questions of your own for me or for Ethan. So please don't be shy. Feel free to put them in the Q&A box, and we'll get to those questions shortly. In the meantime, though, we have prepared some common questions for you today. So we'll dive right in, do a little Q&A between us. So Ethan, one question that I'm sure you get all the time is kind of what is the difference between civil engineering and other engineering programs? And you kind of addressed this already in your presentation earlier, but is there anything else that you want to emphasize or what stood out to you as the deciding factor that this was the engineering program that you wanted when you,
Mhm.
I guess, declared your major after first year?
Yeah, of course, no problem. Um, Obviously, engineering, it's in the name. You're building something for people to use. One thing that really sticks out for civil versus like mechanical or aerospace or even electrical is a lot of these things that you build in civil are designed to not move. If anything you design in civil, if it moves like a building or a bridge, it is probably not good. So you're designing things that are not supposed to move. It's like when you're doing a physics equation and you're subbing everything to zero. Everything has to be sub to zero, or if there's going to be movement, it has to be within a certain amount of threshold that it's allowable to happen. Obviously, things are going to decay. There's going to be some sort of fatigue on the materials, but it has to be within a certain range. Where you may have mechanical, they're building cars. You have aerospace, they're building rockets. You have electrical, they're building electrical grids and things like that, right? So there's a bunch of things that have a bunch of moving parts that that you're going to use. But civil specifically, there's a lot of things that you have to do that just don't move. They're going to be in the same spot. And then obviously computer and software are kind of like its own thing with computers and coding, which you do have to do a little bit of coding in civil engineering. Not, I would say, an extensive amount in the undergrad, but you will learn it. You will do a little bit of it for some of your courses. Especially if you go more so into transportation engineering, a lot of coding in there, a lot of algorithms, things like that, like I said. Um, but I'd really say, like I said earlier, civil engineering, like a Professor Khan at Lausanne will say, is it's the thing you use from the morning you wake up to the moment you go to bed. You wake up, you turn on the lights, you open the water, brush your teeth, you drink your coffee, things like that. The water has to get to your house. The electricity has to get to your house. These are all things that civil engineers are a part of. So it's being part of this broad thing, and mechanical, aerospace, everything is broad, right? But it's being part of, I would guess, something that everybody has to use on a daily basis because everybody's going to use a road. Everybody's going to use water in their house or a building. Everybody's going to be in a building, in a house, some sort of place like that. We live in houses, we do things in buildings. So it's just being a part of something that people are going to use on the regular, but also a big thing is also designing things that are designed to not move versus other disciplines design a lot of things to do the exact opposite.
Yeah, it seems to be a good balance between kind of problem solving and, kind of embracing the challenge, like you said, that comes with it, but
Mhm.
also finding, I guess, meaning from it, right? It's rewarding work because it's, like you said, relates to the everyday, both on the micro and the macro level.
Mhm. Mhm.
Um, well, I'm curious as well. I think even when I first met you, we spoke about this briefly, but remind me, I know that obviously there are a lot of great universities, lots of great engineering programs out there.
Mhm.
What made you choose Lausanne specifically?
hmm a big thing, it's personal to me though. Not everybody will have the same reasoning, but I am very local to Lausanne. I live about 15, 20 minutes away, 30 minutes on a bad day. So that's a very big thing. The travel time, being able to get to campus relatively fast, being able to get home relatively fast. Travel time was a very big thing, especially if you want to do other things outside of school, extracurricular activities, have a part-time job. You want to have low travel times, especially in engineering in general. You don't want to be stuck in traffic if you can avoid it just because you want to go downtown for school. And I was looking at Ryerson and U of T and all these other schools as well, but then when you talk to people and they say the program is demanding and you need time for your studies and you may get tired of all the travel as time progresses because you may just be tired in general just with your schoolwork. So being able to be close to home and have that available to you was a pretty big factor. But also I've had a lot of people that have gone to York and I heard the reviews and A lot of people I knew went to York and everybody said they liked it. And there was a lot of things to do on campus. The campus is pretty compact. It's almost like kind of like a mini city, especially like if you're living on campus, you'll see like you have everything there. You have your food, you have your gym, you have your classes, you have where you're staying, you have pretty much everything you need. And you're not too far from the 407 if you have a car. If you take the 407, you have subway stations to go up further to Vaughan or even downtown. So it's very accessible if you need to. It was just a very accessibility was a pretty big one for me for choosing Lassonde.
Yeah. And I'm sure some of the prospective students who are watching right now are wondering, all of this sounds great. Civil engineering sounds like a great program. Lassonde seems like a good school in general. But I guess I don't know if I would ask like what advice or I guess what are some traits that you feel like someone should have to know that this might be the right program for them? How can they tell if this might be a good fit for them?
I would definitely say that you gotta have um, you got to know certain stuff, very basic traits about yourself, obviously. You have to know your likes and dislikes. Like me specifically, I was considering even going into mechanical when I started. From, like I said, my dad is a mechanic. I've been around cars since I was a kid. I always thought, why not be a mechanical engineer and build cars, be around race cars and things like that. Go that route, go automotive engineering, right? But I started to realize that that's more so of a hobby for me, right? I was never, but the structural and building things, and it was always more grand to me. It was more, I had way more of an interest for it. And even just for general advice of when you're choosing two different programs, you like in general, it really comes down to what do you really see yourself doing in the long run, and is it more so just a hobby to you? Like, can you see yourself wanting to do it later on as a job for money, um, and things like that, right? So it really comes down to your personal traits and the things you like and dislike. I would say that you have to have some sort of interest, specifically just for engineering, of curiosity, to how things are built and why they're built certain ways. Because those are questions you're going to have to answer later on in the program, regardless of whatever discipline you do or you choose at the end of your first year. But specifically for civil engineering here at Lassonde, I would say you definitely have to there's a lot of activities, so are you social, right? There's a lot of things to do. Like if you're a very sociable person, Lasagna is a great choice because there's a lot of things to stay connected with people and do things. Like I just had my capstone day on Friday, and I had people come up to me that were in second year and third year that are research students, and they just wanted to see everything that we are going and explain our basic things, and they're going out of their way to talk to people on campus when they didn't have to, right? So like if you're sociable, it's a very good school to go to. If you have curiosity, engineering is obviously going to be for you. Do you have an interest to how the water gets to your house? Why certain things are built when you drive in your car? Why do you get stuck at a stoplight and at one side of the stoplight finishes at the other, right? Like do you have the curiosity for the structure of the water, the transportation, the sanitation engineering, like do those things interest you? Because you have to like somewhat what you're learning, right? It's a very big thing. Especially people like to say, if you like what you do, you never work a day in your life. But to some extent, nobody likes to really work. It's work at the end of the day. But you have to somewhat like it because if you don't like it, it just makes it a lot worse. It's the same thing with your studies. It's the same thing if you do your master's, professors will tell you that you have to like what you're researching. Otherwise, because it's going to be a lot harder to finish because when you like something, you put so much more effort into it. It just naturally becomes easier. If you like, there's going to be some classes that resonate with you a lot more, and because of that, you're going to spend more time researching, and you're probably going to do a lot more better on your grades in those classes because of how much more it interests you. You want to learn more about it versus other classes, but that's okay too. You're not gonna specifically like everything you learn, but whatever you learn is gonna give you the foundation to be able to do anything you need to in the future.
Yeah, I think that's such a good point because we often get the question as well of, oh, how can I know that I'll be successful, right, if I choose civil engineering? Or, oh, what are the chances of me getting a job and all of that? I mean, of course, everyone it wants to ensure that there's some job security or that there's potential in their field of work, right? But what I always tell students as well is those who are genuinely interested and passionate about their work tend to, in general, be more successful naturally, just because they're going to, like you said, instinctively put more work and time into it. And also, even when you present your work, if you're able to speak on it with passion, like you have about civil engineering, you just come off as that much more promising of a candidate, right, for whatever job you want or for whatever career you want to pursue. So I think those are excellent suggestions, advice for students who are kind of just entering or wondering whether or not this is a good fit for them.
Mhm.
So, on the note of advice or tips, do you have any other suggestions for someone just starting, whether it's civil engineering or engineering in general, or maybe Lassonde in general? What advice do you have to share with us?
Yes, of course. I would say these are definitely some things that I wish I knew more so when I started. And you have to hit the ground running in every course you take. And that doesn't stop in first year. That's going to go all the way until you graduate because things are going to move fast. Whether it's in your first week, you already have an assignment, or in your third week, you're starting your labs already. Things are going to move probably a little bit faster than you're used to. And that's just how university is. But it's getting you ready for that industry level speed because things aren't going to be slow just because you can't keep up in the industry, right? You have to be able to adapt and move with it. So the program is going to mold you into the type of person that you need to be successful in the industry. And one big thing is every course you take, hit the ground running, be on top of your things, make a schedule, know when things are due, know the importance of things. Maybe one assignment is more important than another, so factor that into how much time you spend on one or the other. But also on the order that you spend it in, right? That's another big thing. But for a lot of your courses, you may only take them, and this is some advice that I got in my first year from one of my professors, and tell people pretty much everybody starting to this day still is when you're in high school, you take the same courses every single day. So things stay fresh in your mind. You don't maybe necessarily, you may not have an assignment, but you're learning about it every day and you're assigned homework every single day. And you have a test frequently, maybe every 2 weeks or so. In university, you only have your lectures. You could have your lecture 1 day a week for 3 hours. You could have your lecture 3 days a week for 1 hour each. You could do two lectures at an hour and a half. You could do 6 hours worth of lectures the whole week. It all depends on the course and how much time they need to get the course done in the span of 4 months or the 8 months, whatever, if it's if it's a half semester or a full year, right? So it all depends, but you have to stay on top of your things because stuff may not seem as fresh as it did in high school because your brain isn't being exposed to it as often. So you have to be on top of reviewing your course notes and going over the homework and making sure you're doing it because in university now everybody here is going to be pretty much adults, right? The teachers they're not as on top of you per se for what you're doing and what you're not doing. You have to be on top of it yourself, right? You're an adult, you're responsible for your own course studies. You're responsible for doing your own homework and making sure you have enough time to study for your midterms and not leaving the studying to the last minute to a couple days before or even 1 week. Try to study 2 weeks before, right? Try to do as much as you can. Don't underestimate def do not underestimate anything in the program because it's all new to you, right? You have to hit the ground thinking, okay, yeah, it may be hard. Don't be scared. Deal with the challenge, right? There's going to be a lot of challenges through the 4 years, 5 years, whatever long it takes you, and don't be scared to take an extra year or two. It's really not a big deal. People do it on their own track, right? Some people do it part-time if they want to work more often, right? It's all specific to the person, but just hit the ground running, never underestimate anything, and always just try to stay on top of whatever courses you're taking at that time.
Excellent, excellent advice. And similarly, even when I was doing my undergrad, I wish someone had maybe given me, a little bit more heads up before starting the program. So excellent advice. Now, I am going to pivot over to the Q&A. We've gone over some of the questions that we often receive, but just because we didn't address that question right now doesn't mean it's not a good question. So again, if you're wondering anything, whether it's something very minute or more on the macro level, on the grand scheme, please don't hesitate to put it in the chat. That's what we're here for. There's already one question there. So Ethan, just wondering if you can shed some light on this. Do you feel that civil engineering is more reliant on math or physics or perhaps some other subject, especially compared to other types of engineering that you know of?
Definitely relied on math.
Mm.
There's definitely a lot of physics involved. I would not say there's a lot of chemistry involved. Um, Really, it's more so going to be your physics and just expanding on your physics, and going into once you finish your first year of physics and you did like your kinematics and your equations and things like that, and you have your you have your list of equations to solve for different variables, and you're using those equations as tools to find a variable that you need that you need from the question, or using the variables that are offered in the question with the equations that you know to find another variable from another equation. So it's a lot of things like that. Definitely going to be a lot of math. You do not stop using your algebra and your calculus for sure. Those two skills you definitely need to have all 4 years. You definitely need to know your derivatives. You need to know your integrals. You need to know your matrices. It may not be all the time, but you still need to know them for whenever the case may arise. Um, and that's some good things to have, but I would say it's relying on both. You have to know your math and you have to know your physics.
Right. And that's something that I also emphasize to students on the admissions front. So I often get questions from students like, oh, what is the minimum grade required for my math courses, the science courses at the high school level? And of course, we suggest saying, at least at this point, ideally, if you're getting at least a minimum 70% in those math and science prerequisites, but you want to aim for an average slightly higher than that, maybe around the low 80s or so. And of course, to students, that may seem like barriers to entry. They're like, oh, these are expectations that we have to meet. But when you think of why these expectations are set, it's exactly what you're saying, Ethan. We want students to feel that they're set up for success and they hit the ground running, right? So we need our future engineers to come in with strong math and science backgrounds, or at least the competency for it, right? And so if you are, whether you're at a high school level right now, or you're a transfer student or you're a mature student, when you are taking or retaking some of those courses for admission, it's not just to kind of meet that bare minimum to get in, it's also refreshing those skills that are necessary so that when you get into the program, you're starting those first year courses, you already have the core skills, that background necessary to feel like you're on the same page as everyone else and you're set up for success there. Mhm. Now, there is another question in the chat about co-op. So this is another topic, of course, that often comes up for us at the recruitment admissions level. So Ethan, if you could elaborate a little bit on how does co-op work after second year? Do students have to take a break from school in order to work?
Yeah, you can take a break for school if you want to, but you do have to take at least one break while you're doing it, for the for the full co-op term. But some you can break it up. You can do it in multiple summers, or you can miss a semester and do work instead. And then, but it does count towards your credits, I believe, if you do miss school while you're doing co-op.
Correct. Yeah, so you can go on essentially a co-op term. And of course, right now we're kind of going over the very general logistics of co-op, but that's because it is quite early on still. I know students obviously want to know that co-op is available to them. They're excited to enter the workforce, get some hands-on experience, get some, good messaging on their resume and start networking, all that great stuff. And of course, get paid for the work that they do. All of that's fantastic. But it's completely optional. Co-op is completely optional. And also it's made available to all of you as long as you're, eligible to continue in the program and that you meet the criteria. In fact, we have a wonderful, wonderful co-op team who will reach out to you in your second year to say, hey, are you interested in co-op? Come join us as part of these info sessions, workshops, and let us help you with building your portfolio, your resume, preparing for interviews, all of that. So for those of you who are nervous, you're going to get that support that you need and that you want a little later down the road. For now, what's important for you to know is that it is an option, an opportunity available to you if you want it. Okay, so just keep an eye on your email and all of that stuff, especially starting second year. Okay, so let's see what else we have there. So I guess this is more of a general question. Let's see. How was exam season like for you in your first year, Ethan? If you can recall, or you just finished exams as a final year student, so maybe you can shed some light on that as well. But what was the adjustment like? I'm sure for our high school applicants, they're wondering like, I don't know what to expect. Maybe they've heard some stories or rumors of what university exams are like. So what was your experience like?
Um, My experience may be a little bit different than yours, because I did start in COVID. So the courses, I don't know if the courses are still run the exact same way, where the exams are a little bit smaller and you have a lot more things to do during the semester. In fourth year, there are a lot of courses that are there's like, it's more so project based and a couple assignments, and you have a midterm and a final that make up a lot of the percentage of the grades. So you have some pretty big tests when you go through the years. Um, but I would say it was definitely nerve-wracking, I'm gonna be honest. Because you went through your midterms, you did your midterms, but not every course has a midterm. Especially for us, it was more so like an assignment and a quiz every 2 weeks, or an assignment every week, and that mo took up most of the grades throughout the semester, and then there was only a final at the end. But most of the courses that have finals, and if you're doing engineering, you may have five, six, even seven courses a semester sometimes, and in high school you may only have four courses. So when you do that, you only have four exams versus having to deal with five, six, or maybe even seven, right? So it's a lot more having to stay on top of your time management. You may have end of the year projects that are due right before the exam season starts, but you need to find time to work on your project, but also start studying for all your classes and knowing as early as possible the order of how your exams take place, but also the weights of them too, right? And knowing how well you're doing in some courses, and this break up your time accordingly for each exam, right? Maybe you're stronger in one subject than the other, so you need to spend more time on that to do better on the final. Because one course you understand it so well, you can just review a couple things and you'll be okay. But there's definitely a lot of reviewing. It's like I said earlier, is you can't underestimate just because you think you think that you know it all, there could be a curveball on a final. That is something that really makes you think, right? It's not an example that you may have done in class. It maybe builds on an example, but it's not something you've necessarily seen before. So you need to make sure that you studied enough to be able to understand the concept to a certain extent, where if a new problem arises during the final, you have the necessary skills for that class to be able to problem solve on the spot and work out a solution to the problem.
Is there a specific approach or strategy that has worked for you when you study or when you review materials, like just a little tip or trick that's worked well for you?
Yeah, I like to take little breaks when I study. I find that if I try to cram too much in too little time, it doesn't really do much for me. If anything, it's negative for me. I'll start forgetting a lot of the information, because you're trying to cram too much information at one period of time, and your brain just can't keep up with it, right? The information is so difficult, so advanced from what you're used to, that you need to have you need to give yourself enough time to do a little bit piece by piece, take a break, refresh, go back to it, do a little bit more, and then just keep on that routine. So it's giving yourself enough time to be able to do that, but then it's also while you're doing it, don't take too long of a session that burns you out and that then you can't do any more for the rest of the day. You can't do any more tomorrow because you already did so much because you have to be able to retain the information, go slow, right? I find that whenever you're writing stuff down, redo the examples. When you redo it, like you're going through the step by step with your hand, you're writing it. That helps the most for retaining information instead of just reading it or looking at how to do a question or things like that. Actually writing it down, the words, the equations, the actual steps, going through, redoing the questions in the lecture slides, all these things, but not overdoing it. Give yourself enough time to have those little breaks in between so your mind can reset and you can go to it fresh again. It's the same thing when you're writing an exam. If you write an exam and professors will probably usually tell you if you're stuck on a problem, go to the next one, come back to it, right? Use your time wisely, right? If you know how to do something, start with that one. Then, if you go to the next question, you're having a little problem, you get stuck at one step, maybe take a little break. Go to another question that you think you can figure out, and then let your brain take a break from that type of question. Maybe when you go back, it's more relaxed and you actually have a better mindset on how to do it. You have more clear point of view on how to solve that question. So yeah, I would definitely say those two things. Definitely give yourself enough time to start studying, and while you're studying, give yourself enough mini breaks. Don't take a whole day off, but
Yeah.
take like a little bit here and there to let your brain cool down and be able to retain more information when you get started again.
Yeah, let yourself actually absorb the
Yeah,
material rather than just
yeah,
trying to fit as much as possible, right?
yeah.
And I love the point you made about also skipping questions or doing questions out of order. I think
Hmm.
that's fine. I think as humans, and we've also been conditioned to always kind of go from like top to bottom, which of course there are some questions, some problems you will have to if they're multi-step,
Hmm.
but allow yourself to kind of build confidence by doing those questions that you actually are feel, more sure about first. And then I think psychologically that does something for you too. You feel more confident by the time you revisit a question that maybe was more challenging or seemed more challenging at the beginning. A quick question for you. So someone in the chat's wondering, what programming language do you use the most as a civil engineer? Mhm.
So you don't really um, use too much of it after your first year. You will learn a little bit of MATLAB, you learn a little bit of Java, and those are primarily some of the ones that you'll use um, later on. You can use MATLAB for there's a course of later on in third year. I believe it's called numerical methods. It's basically solving math equations and things like that on the computer, which you can use MATLAB for later on if you wanted to. Um, and then as for some of the other courses that you may use, the like for transportation courses, I'm not particularly specific to them because I did not take them, but it's definitely going to be MATLAB and Java for sure. You'll definitely learn how to use both of those in your 4 years at Lassonde.
Now, I know that speaking of, fourth year, you are wrapping up your time here at Lassonde as a final year student. And so probably job searching or thinking about starting your career um,
Hmm.
is on your mind. So, what, I guess, approach or strategies are you adapting now to kind of, look for a career in civil engineering, or is that something you're considering at all? There's a question to chat asking just like how do job offers or how does job searching
Hmm.
work
Hmm.
engineer?
Yeah.
So just wondering kind of what insights you have into.
Hmm. Yeah, so it could be like applying to any job, part-time job, full-time job, right? There's a website and the job title's there. You apply online, you submit your resume, submit all the information, and then they'll contact you if you're chosen. Or you may have connections to people, you know people's name, you know people's phone number, you know emails, then you email people directly with your resume, say you're seeking an opportunity. and something like that. And you basically describe yourself and you attach your resume, and then you ask them to reach out if you're a possible candidate for any roles that they may have. That's kind of like cold emailing. You don't really know if you're going to get anything back, but if you know someone's emailed, it doesn't hurt to ask. People get them on the regular. You won't be the only one doing it for sure. And it definitely helps you stand out more because they're checking their emails and they see this specific name versus you have to compete with everybody in a job portal that everybody has access to, right? And it could also be referral based, right? You know somebody that works somewhere, they ask you for your resume, you give it to them, they transfer it to HR contacts you, and then you go to work through there. Or sometimes even I've got into actual buildings themselves and asked to drop off a resume or speak to someone if anybody's available at that time while I'm there, to try to make myself look presentable in person, more approachable, but also to stand out, right? If the more you can stand out in the application process, you're gonna be more viewed, right? So it's a big thing because you're gonna be competing with you have three schools in Toronto alone that have engineering students. So they're all gonna be there's always people graduating, so you have to do whatever you can to stand out. And yeah, you can do application based on a website. You can email people directly. You can try to go into their office and drop off a resume. And then a lot of times they'll give you an email to contact HR and say, hey, I dropped off my resume today. I would love to chat. If you guys have any roles available, please let me know. You can find me here. They'll continue to email you if need be, or they'll call you. There's multiple ways of communication. Um, and things like that. Networking events always help. If you can go to them, talk to people that work at companies, go to job fairs. It's another good way to do it. It's just a lot of communication.
Great. And then I think we only have time for one more question. Um, okay, so this student is wondering, would you say that your professors were pretty accessible during your time at Lassonde, especially when you needed help or had a question? Or perhaps even more specifically, what, I guess, again, strategies or tricks did you kind of use to make sure that you got the help that you needed?
hmm yeah, so for every course, generally in the syllabus, at the top of the first page, we'll have a office hours section where the professor basically is available for 1 hour or 1 to 2 hours, once to twice a week, where you can go into their office somewhere on your campus, either in the Bergeron or if you're taking a math course, it may be in a different building. And then you can ask them specific questions about what's going on in the course. If you're stuck with homework, if you're worried about a midterm and you want to talk to them privately about something, you can go there and ask your questions, and it can be like a one-on-one help. Sometimes it's over Zoom, sometimes it's in person, whatever the professor has it already set as. But even the TAs, if you have the TA's email, a lot of the TAs, if you email them asking for help, they'll join a Zoom call with you as well, right? There's always um, uh, leadership in the courses that for people there to help you if you're struggling with anything. Everybody's there to help you succeed. But you also have to do your part to show them that you want to succeed, and you're going out of the way to get the extra help to actually to do really good in the course, and you're really trying. The help is going to be there. It's going to be available to you. You have to be willing to just use it, right? There's no shame in using it. I've gone to many office hours to ask for clarification. Even just recently in my fourth year, I had a project due. I went to talk to one of the professors because we were getting stuck on one of the sections for one of the models that we had to do, right? There's no shame in asking for help. I know sometimes people want to say, I'll just do it myself. I don't want to ask the teacher, but office hours are private. You can make an appointment. It's just you one-on-one with the prof, or even you can talk to the prof after class, say, hey, can I email you about this thing? Just so they're expecting it in their emails already, right? So there's always going to be help for you to gain access if you're struggling on something or if you just want guidance on something else or even friendly advice. I've gone to the profs recently and asked them about advice for the ones that are still work in the industry right now and they have connections. Like, what are some skills and things that I could do for the interviews to have on my resume? The professors are there to help you. They want to see you succeed, right? You gotta do your share.
Fantastic. Thank you so much to all of you who asked wonderful thoughtful questions in the chat, in the Q&A. And of course, thank you, Ethan, for your wonderful advice and insights and just sneak peek into the program. We are nearing the end of our session. Do you want to just quickly maybe wrap this
Yep.
session up for us?
Yep. So if you guys have any more questions or you still want to stay connected with us, me, other ambassadors, and people in the admissions office, you guys can scan the QR code at the top of the page, and it'll give you access to the Discovery Days website where you can see the upcoming spotlight sessions that are going on this week and in the future. Student panels going on next Saturday, and we also have the ability to join the Lassonde community where all us ambassadors are in there. You can ask us questions about the program, the courses, enrollment. There's people for the enrollment office there as well. So if you have any extra questions, you can always ask us there, as well as just finding out more things about the campus life and extracurricular activities that we touched on a little bit earlier.
So on that note, on behalf of Ethan, myself, the entire recruitment admissions team here at Lassonde, thank you all for your time today. Again, we know that it's not always easy choosing a program or the right university for you, but you are taking the first big step in learning more about opportunities that are available to you. So that deserves a big kudos. We hope that you'll stay in touch. And even more so, we hope that we get to see you on campus in the very near future. If you have any questions for us, like Ethan mentioned, feel free to join us on Discord. You can send us an email. There are ways to stay in touch. So thank you again for all your time. I hope you have a great rest of your day. Thank you, everyone.